some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
Try this again. Good evening and welcome to the Chop Shop. I'm your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry, and I'm delighted as always that God gives us this privilege to be able to come to you on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Hey, Mama Brenda, my godmother, is one of our faithful viewers. As always, I got to bring on the screen my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts on the ones and twos, technique 1200s only, because anything else is undignified. What's going on, bro?
Hey man, I'm good, man. I'm enjoying this pleasant summer weather. It's not brutal. This is good summer weather. I'm enjoying it right now.
I have only seen 2 verses. They want to take my black card. I've only seen 2. The first one I couldn't miss was the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and Fire.
I knew that was your first one. I knew that was your first one.
This one between the Locks and Dipset, I couldn't miss it. And listen, it wasn't the verses, brother.
Listen, you know how in a classic line from the Transformers, Optimus Prime and Megatron was about to get it on, and Prime hit him with the "It's me and you, Prime." He was like, "No, it's just it's me and you, Megatron." He was like, "No, it's just me." Like it's not me and you against each other. This is just me. Well, listen, Marv, he snatched that man do-rag off, Marv.
Man, listen, it was ugly. It was ugly. Like, and you know, of course, back when they was both doing their thing, either you liked one, you liked the other. You didn't really do that comparison thing. If you're a true hip hop head, you appreciate the art. But when you put them together like that, man,
listen, friendship matters. Friendship matters. Like the Locks are actually close and cool. Dipset, they all just individuals just doing what they do, and that showed, man. That showed. But yeah, that's one for the ages. That's one for the books that Dipset got to go battle somebody from the Mickey Mouse Club or something like that right now. I don't know.
I don't know, man. Listen,
it's hard.
Look, it was rough. But let's get right to these church announcements, man, because we got a great show tonight, and I want to make sure we preserve as much time as we can. As always, we got to Stop the Beef hotline. We want you to make sure that you're hitting up 443-431-3705 or 443-522-7848 if you know about something that's going on, especially if it's something that can cost somebody their life. I just yesterday had to eulogize a very dear friend of mine who was murdered in a community that we grew up most of our lives in, and I told the people while I was there, I'm just sick of murder. And look, one of my monikers is murder don't like me, and I don't like murder. We don't like each other because I'm trying to stop it, and it's trying to do everything it can to stop our people. The peace agreement is a major part of what we're doing when we out and about in the streets. We go into the various communities, and we're talking to the people who are boots on the ground. No, not in activism. We talking to the soldiers who are mostly involved in the culture that's producing a lot of the violence. And the conversations that we're having are ones that say, look, we got a job, but even if you got to eat in the streets, you ain't got to die in the street. So we want you to be prayerful that we can reach as many people as we can with the Baltimore Peace Agreement. All right. The mayor has reinstituted the mask indoor mandate. Listen, y'all, you can debate, you can pontificate, you can do a whole bunch of stuff, but you can die while you're doing it. I don't tell anybody what to do. But as for me in my house, whether it comes down to my church or otherwise, we gonna be masked up, man. We ain't come this far in this pandemic to get arrogant, cocky, and cost ourselves our own lives. So listen, y'all, it's out there. We back indoor mask mandate. Do what you gotta do to stay alive. All right, tomorrow night, August the 6th at 7 p.m. from 7 to 11, we're going to be having what we call a paint with purpose. If you're one of those people that like sipping paint, we ain't sipping. because it's going to be inside the church. We having a paint with purpose. We got a talented artist that's going to come down. There's going to be some food. There's going to be some beverages. They just won't be alcohol. And we're going to have a good time. For your $35, you get all your paint supplies. You get a lesson and a keepsake painting that you'll be able to take with you and hang up on your wall. And ultimately, it goes to support our back to school initiative and community day that we're putting out in the po homes. This year, we're doing it bigger than we've ever done it, and we really need your support. $35 per person. The third annual Brake Light Clinic is happening on Saturday from 12 to 5 p.m. They are going to be doing brake light repairs up there to help stop some of this unbalanced traffic stops and things of that nature. And your boy, me, Mr. Jobs himself is going to be in the house with some hot opportunities. I keep telling y'all, I got more jobs than I got people. I need you. If you are looking for employment on that day, meet me in the Job Opportunities Task Force at Gospel Tabernacle Baptist Church, and we're going to put you together. All right, and last but certainly not least, on August the 21st, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., we're going to be in my beloved Lexington Terrace Po Homes neighborhood. They done chopped it up into 5 different spaces: Callaway Road, Po Homes, Poppleton, Vintage Gardens, and the towns at the terraces, but it's still my beloved LT for life. We are going to be there doing, it's really about the unity. We already got 100 book bags already set up, and donations are still coming in. But we are doing this about unifying the community. I just said that I just eulogized another one of my good brothers who I grew up with in the neighborhood, who died right there in our community, and we're trying to do everything we can to stop it. Yeah, we're going to give out school supplies, but I ain't touting it as a back to school, because it's going to be a lot more love, evangelism, and other things that are happening to try to bring real change to our community. So if you want to come down and support, volunteer. If you want to make a donation, our Cash App is going to run throughout the show. It's $VHW Center. Your $5, $10, $20 will go a long way to support this effort. Thank y'all, everybody who has already donated and contributed. But if you haven't had the opportunity, please send us a seed, and we're going to make sure that you see the harvest. See, I ain't tell you get a harvest. If you understand the book, then I ain't got to tell you that, but you're going to see the harvest on this day when we come together in our community to be about a good work. The Men of the We Are Us movement are going to be there. We partnered with IC Nation, the Impulse Church, my good brother Brandon Leak, and his awesome and amazing wife, great woman of God, Pastor Letitia Leak. We're coming together and we're doing great things for our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we got a minute left in our 10-minute preview section, y'all, and I'm going to go right to where we are going tonight. You see it right over my shoulder. The cost of worship. I put it in the Witchcom if you didn't understand what tonight's show was about. People always criticize that churches are raising money without ever looking at the fact that it takes some expense to have a building and place for people to gather and all of those kinds of things. But we're going to kind of focus and center on one particular area, because my man who's a part of the show tonight put up a post on Facebook talking about the cost of worship. And I asked the question, is it cultural? Is it a black church thing that you can't even call a musician unless you got a certain budget? Well, we're going to talk about it tonight. We want to know, what is this thing about? I got to get paid before I can play. You know, pay to play, that's a worldly term, but pretty much that's what we talk about a lot of times when it comes down to this particular topic. So we're going to get right to it, and I got 3 of my favorite people with me tonight. First, coming on the screen from the Brook Church, one of our favorite voices. She came on last time, her and Pastor Aaron Hanna, and had one of our greatest conversations. The people are still clicking on that show, and the views continue to go up. I'm talking about the one and only Pastor Yaniya Wilkins. Thank you for joining us tonight, woman of God. Unmute yourself.
guys can't hear
There we
me?
go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Awesome.
Y'all remember that commercial? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? I'm like that all day. Anyway, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm excited about this topic on tonight.
I'm excited to have you. And next, we got my man, my friend, my brother. This guy is one of the greatest men of God I've ever met in my life. He does so much, has such a community-based focus, and he has been at the forefront for many years now, long before 2015, of trying to bring a Christ-centered sense of purpose into the Baltimore Police Department with a lot of his work. He's one of the co-founders and organizers of the Baltimore Day of Hope and have done so much work quietly. He ain't one of those guys that's got his camera rolling every time he do something in Baltimore, but a great man of God. And I'm going to keep it real. He represents another culture in this thing that we call ministry. I'm talking about the one and only Pastor Matt Stevens. Thank you for joining me tonight, good brother.
Well, it's good to be here. Good evening, everybody.
I'm excited to have you here, man.
Me too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And last but not least, y'all know I had to bring him here. He said, why? He asked Shaka, why do I always bring him for topics like this? I bring him because we wouldn't even be talking about this if it wasn't for his Facebook post. But he's always going to keep it a stack, whether you agree with him or not, doesn't matter. He is a true man of God, one of the brothers that mentored me in this process of succession. Many people go out and start churches, but when you become the pastor that succeeds another pastor, boy, you got a whole nother world. And he gave me a lot of guidance and wisdom through that process. A man of God who is a man of excellence, a man of wisdom, and one of my favorite people. I'm talking about the one and only Pastor Clae Burston. Thank you for joining us tonight.
What's going on, everybody?
So look, we ain't gonna take no tea for the fever. We ain't gonna hold up. We gonna jump right in. We are talking about the cost of worship. We are talking about where are we when and Shaka said it. Shaka said, do we have any musicians that are members of their church just love God and play? Or are we at a place where we got a bunch of hirelings and a bunch of people that are high guns or whatever the case may be? I'm gonna talk to you first, Pastor Clae, because you're the one that kind of sparked this topic off. Where's your heart as it pertains to this? And it's a very interesting thing. You yourself were a minister of music for many years.
Yeah. I think money has changed the dynamic, meaning the attitude of the musicians. Many musicians aren't members of the churches where they play. so they have no emotional or spiritual connection to where they minister. So for them, it's solely a job. And whether or not that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But many of them have taken the position that I don't go here, I just play here. It's a job. So my personal opinion, I don't believe that that's a healthy attitude to have as a believer. I think believers should be open to serving God beyond expense. And I think that part of ministry is being lost in this sort of professional phase that we're moving as churches are growing and striving for excellence.
Pastor Wilkins, I want to come to you next. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Where's your heart just concerning this topic as a person who pastors a church and who is, understanding what it's like to have to encounter these kinds of things? If you want to do anything, you got to have a budget right first.
Absolutely. I would definitely say going into ministry, we hear the phrase, I'm pretty sure all the pastors have heard this phrase, or at least heard this stated at some point or another, that church is a business. And to a certain degree, when you are operating off of a budget and checks and balances, it kind of does become a business a little bit. It should not be, right? It should not be, but it is. And I just have a hard time with us using our gifts solely from a prosperity standpoint, where we are not serving with our gifts at any capacity. I think that's my concern. My concern is I do understand the dynamics of having musicians on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays and some Saturdays, or them traveling with you, or multiple services on Sunday. We do understand that, you know, we want to be a blessing to those musicians who lend their gift, but at some point it should not be where if you don't have this dollar amount, I'm not coming, I'm not serving, I'm not playing. At what point do you say, well, I can lend my gift because this gift was given unto me by God, and I should be giving it back to the kingdom of God to some degree. So I struggle with it because I know that my ministry, when we started, we had to go without musicians because the cost would range anywhere from $3,000 to $1,000 per Sunday if I wanted a keyboardist, if I wanted a drummer, if I wanted a guitar player. So depending on what we were bringing in, that determined how much was actually going out to the musicians. And, you know, if they did not get that, they were not coming.
Pastor Matt Stevens, I do want to swing this thing down to you. I remember sitting a couple of years ago and you and I were having a conversation, and I was sharing with you that my 15 to 20 years as a minister of music, I never accepted payment from my church. I never was on salary or anything like that. And you were telling me how you guys have built a culture that is completely opposite of this. Share with us how the system works in the 3 campuses and 3 churches that you pastor, brother.
Well, yeah, man, I'm blessed to be on a pastoral team at Freedom Church. And when the church, I wasn't part of it when it launched. It launched as a small church, but when it went to multi-site, a quality decision was made that it wasn't going to be about an individual. And what they were talking about is that we weren't going to exalt our pastors or senior leaders or worship leaders over anything else in the church, and certainly not over Jesus. So we had to build a culture different than what most of us were used to. And let me just tell folks out, if you're like, well, that's a county church or that's the white church or whatever, I'm going to challenge you, because there are other churches like I-5 and maybe the Mix and some other multicultural churches. And Freedom is working on growing stronger as a multicultural instead of a monocultural. There's a whole chop shop just to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
But we wanted to be a multicultural that was based on a serving spirit. And so when it came to how we respect our leadership, when it came to how we develop our services and our college and our young people, what we call our community groups, everything we've done has been out of a culture of serving. We're not and I made this statement that it's a culture of serving that should be greater than a commitment to tradition. So our culture of serving in our individual hearts, we already talked about the worship leaders or the musicians and such. If the culture of serving in our heart is greater than the commitment to tradition, and your tradition means that you as a senior leader get lifted above everybody, get honored about everybody, and I want to be respectful of traditions. I'm not putting that down. We just made a determination and a decision. So everybody who's serving is going to come through some very what we call growth track. They're gonna know who God is, what He's done for them, what He says about them, what He's created and wired them to do, and how to connect that to the bigger body. So, I mean, we're blessed now. I was looking at our planning center where we manage our volunteers, and our worship team is 250, 280 some people. We have drummer, we have all the musicians, we have all the vocalists. And then in that culture of serving, instead of our leads on the worship team getting wrapped up in performing the moment, they got wrapped up in serving those that want to be part of the team, and began helping to develop musicians in their craft, helping to develop vocalists in their craft, helping to do those things. So the staff that does get paid is doing the admin work and the development of people, because we made a quality decision that we wanted to make sure when we invest money, we're investing it into people. And so if we do pay, somebody, it's investing into them that'll be passed on to investing in worshipers. There's also some other cultural dynamics in our services that we change. We remove distractions. We felt like leaders. We felt like some of the churches we had belonged to in the past, and these are not, again, just monocultural churches. These are multicultural churches. We felt like they were way too distracted on the leaders and the show and the speaker and the singer and the this and that, and that wasn't what we read in the Bible for worship to be. We saw that it was a matter of surrender, the characteristic of humility, even though we didn't know. And I'll just be honest. And I'm not the kind of guy that says, well, I'll pay somebody if they're a humble keyboard player than if they're a hot shot and are stuck on themselves, because that's not true either, because we don't want distractions. So we don't want somebody coming in with a half-baked craft that gets up there and it's distracting and painful for those of us trying to worship and listen. So it's about building that culture. It's about growing. It's about people who want to do well and honor the Lord even greater, having people who have gone down that path link up with them and help strengthen them in their craft, whether that be vocal or anything else. And let me say this too. I'm not a worship leader. I'm a drummer by trade, and in the past, and I've played in House of the Lord and not House of the Lord. I'll just put it that way. But also my wife she's a worship leader, and she does sit in, and I know where it's different talking about people who sit in versus people who might be the primary worship leader in a congregation. My wife, though, she'll go and she'll lead and help congregations out, whether it's for a short season or it's to fill in for somebody or something like that. There is always a function for that. And I'm all for people being paid, but when it becomes like this industry idea of we're musicians and we're going to get our play on by going into churches and doing that whole thing, we just have pulled away from that. And after a big learning curve of how, because you know how to build a culture, right? You take your values, you implement your values, that determines your culture. And that took us some time because of where we came from and where we were headed. But as we've done that, it started to attract what I would say are primarily the right people in terms of giftedness and heart and humility. And we've been praying into that. And let me say, too, we've been praying for the past 4 years that we would go from a primary monoculture, which was white, white county people, whatever label you want to throw on it, to being a multicultural and not just in terms of multi-ethnic, but multi-economic, all these different levels, and multi-generational. And like when I go to our campus where we hang out the most, my family hangs out the most is the Middle River. I got to say, my wife and I are some of the oldest people there. The majority of the people that are attending on Sunday nights are coming out are 30 and under. And it's drawing some people with some crazy strong gifts who just can't, they're waiting in line right now to get up and be a part of the worship teams. And we're crafting that and working with them.
Let me jump in here because I got to go to my brother, Pastor Clay. I need you to just kind of respond according to what you just heard, man. I don't have a question or nothing. I just want whatever it was, because I know you're sitting on the hot seat.
Yeah. Man, and hearing him speak was awesome. I think, but there is a major difference, or there are major differences relates to churches that are found in a city, churches that have a large majority of African American membership, and I think a lot of musicians who play in these churches, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them come from impoverished environments. They don't have money. And I believe that a lot of them look at their church, where they play in church, as their only source of income. And I think that when you have people who may be highly skilled, or on instruments. However, you know, they may have an awesome day job, meaning your organist may be an engineer. He makes, you know, good money anyway. So he can sort of, you know, say, you know what, I'll lend my gift to the Lord because my mortgage is still paid. I think the guys that travel in the circles in which, you know, my ministry sort of focuses on, I don't know if they have that liberty. And I think that's one of differences between African American churches and Caucasian churches. I think that the economic spectrum could possibly be a bit more healthy in those
So
environments.
so let me ask you this, because if we're going to talk about the economic spectrum, we've got to talk about the reality that in a lot of the same churches where people are complaining about musicians, there's a hefty salary that goes to the pastor. And the pastors, is the musician saying, if the pastor gonna get his, I gotta get mine. Now, again, I have chosen, me personally, even in becoming a pastor, to continue to lend all of who I am to the church. I don't get a salary. I don't get any of that. And I love that you brought up the economically disadvantaged piece, but we can't have had a conversation tonight. And we go ahead a conversation because some of the musicians that I talk to, they say how the pastor gonna want to get his and I don't get mine.
That's why I said we challenge that tradition.
Yeah.
So our pastors are not overpaid. Matter of fact, they really, some of them are working bivocational, and they spouse are the ones that are paying the bill. And it may be they live in a different economic, but the culture I'm talking about does work within the respect, in some places has worked in the respect of some of the African American more poor traditions as well. We also have a campus in Nairobi, Kenya, that we do not fund. That was the agreement. We fund some of the work they do as it pertains to a I don't want to say orphanage, you know, foster home and a farm there, but that has nothing to do with the church. The church itself has taken on the same values, and it's working in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'll be honest with you, most of the people living on assistance in our city make more money than people in my church in Kenya.
Yeah, because I get ready to say he just shot down your poor.
So I'm sorry.
Conversation. Let me go to Pastor Yaniya. Let me go to no. He just shot down your poor little musician theory. Let me talk to Yaniya. Yaniya, come on and jump in because I see you want to get on.
What I'm going to say, I have to piggyback on Pastor Clae, and that is in certain geographical locations and demographics, the economic structure is not the same. And so because there is no economic foundation at home, you just don't see the same deployment as it relates to those spiritual gifts. But I would like to say there are pastors that is not receiving a consistent salary. There is pastors that are pastoring, and even if the church does give them an allotment for it, most of the time, especially in smaller ministries or ministries that are near the urban cities, those pastors have to put their allotment back into the church just to sustain the sustainability of the ministry. And you guys know that if you bring me on, you're going to get full transparency because I just don't mind sharing. But I pastored consistently for 3 years without ever receiving an allotment. And so it was a little alarming that my budget for musicians was running anywhere from $4,000 to $1,000, but I was the one that was helping to pay that and wasn't receiving anything. Right. And not, again, because I just believe that if I serve the house of God well and I rendered my gift, and if I gave, then God would make a way. And of course he did. But there is pastors that are not receiving. And then some of them that are receiving have to take what they receive and they have to make up in their budget. Some pastors are accepting, outside preaching assignments to get the honorarium or to have the honorarium to be able to take back to sustain the ministry, because the culture or the environment has not come to a place where Pastor Matt is talking about. I would love to see that, because I believe that's the right way. But a lot of our urban cities, communities, they just have not, they haven't arrived to that yet.
So that's the question, though, because I don't believe any of this is birthed out of an economic situation. I believe it's birthed out of a mindset. I believe, listen, when I came to the church that I now pastor, I didn't have what I have now. I didn't even have a job. I didn't have a consistent job. The career that I got into, all of that came while I was a part of it. So, and it's not, look, I'm not pushing back a challenge. I believe everybody has a perspective, and I respect it, but I just don't believe anything to do with money begins with your situation. I believe it begins, well, not say that. Let me not say that. It can begin with your situation. However, what it becomes is a result of the mindset. And if we have a mindset in the church that anybody got to get theirs, whether it's the pastor, whether it's the musicians, I think you're going to have that hireling culture. And you're going to see where, like, even the musicians are a product of that.
Yeah. So I guess my question, well, kind of question / response is, because ultimately in the African American church, music is super important. Like, music is a part of the African American church experience. Great singing, dynamic musicianship. Great artists who ever lived started out in the church, and I think that this see that. And how valuable what they bring to the table is a part of that experience. I think that, they feel like, because they do fine. Now the challenge is that everyone isn't paid. Like security officers in church don't get paid. The ushers don't get paid, and a lot of other people don't get paid. However, but I think that music is such a deep part of that African American church experience, and so they can see the value in what they bring. And I'm not really sure if other cultures music plays that big role in church experience.
Pastor Clay, you tripping?
Yeah, what culture?
When you look at Elevation, you look at Bethel, you look at the church, the largest churches in the world aren't large because of great preaching. They're large because their greatest tool is musical evangelism. Right. So you tripping, bro. I ain't.
But those are relatively new occurrences.
But that's what I'm saying, because but when I think about what Pastor Matt said, he said it had a lot to do with challenging tradition. You know what I'm saying? I've been blessed with a drummer that's really been with me for 20 years. We didn't get paid together in my church when it was me and just me and him. God blessed me with a young man who is talented. He plays the bass. He's like a son to me. And the thing is, my personal conviction was to be a blessing to them. My church don't not bless me because it can't. I choose not to be on a salary and all of that sort of thing. And my life, when I came to my church, I was a high school dropout, out of prison, didn't have a sensibility about job, career. And now I'm one of the mainstays in city government in Baltimore. I can go where I want, do what I want. God bless me with $1 billion. Money is not my issue, or my object, or my concern. And I believe that where I've made my offering of myself, God has blessed me with things that I was never qualified for. For me, again, it's that mindset. It's that because you said it's one of the most important. Have we made it one of the most important things? Has it traditionally been one of the most important things? And have we failed to challenge that tradition? Pastor Yaniya, I'm gonna let you want you to jump on that.
I definitely think it. I definitely believe that it is. That it is. We have a strong culture. I'm not even paying attention to Bishop Martin. I saw his comment. we have a strong culture of music, and I think that just again, our people traditionally come from a strong culture of musicianship. But I want to say now you're speaking of how you came into the ministry. And one of the things that I do like that Pastor Matt said is that, you know, when you are now creating a different culture, you now have to challenge everyone else and what they come with. See, it's okay when you say, well, I was grown, I was raised, my leaders taught me, or someone poured into me, and they taught me the principle of giving. They taught me the principle of serving. Absolutely. But now we're dealing with a generation, right, that was not necessarily taught, right, the principle of giving, but the principle of receiving. We see this across the board. You can see this in your very own home, looking at your children. You know, generations before, we were taught to do our chores and earn an allowance. These children now have an expectation of what they're supposed to receive. So you have to challenge, going back to what you said initially, the mindset, not just, okay, we're musical people and this is how we're brought into, but if we're going to challenge that mindset, then we have to challenge everything, because we're also dealing with a generation of people. They are expecting, they expect to get paid. They expect that it's something for them. They are a something for nothing culture. They want something without really honestly having to give anything. And so we don't have the Bible says, if you give, it shall be given back to you. Good measure, pressed down, shake it together, and running over. But we don't have a culture of people that are givers. We've lost, I'm not going to say everybody, but there's a large sum of people that would rather receive and get than to give.
But let's talk about it, because the truth be told, if we're going to look at who have been the two central figures in the new Black church movement, or the idea of success in the new Black church movement, or the modern, let me not say new because it's not new no more, it's 20 years old, the modern Black church music. As a preacher, you got T.D. Jakes, and as a musician, you got Kirk Franklin. And the thing that was ascribed to both of them, to me, even more so than relevance, was superstardom. Right? Because that attitude, that celebritized attitude that we see right now happening. I mean, let's talk about it. Where musicians feel like even if you paying them, they can show up when they want to, because you're gonna wait for them to get there. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole mentality. It's that mind frame. At where are we as a culture? Because again, we're the ones that's saying. My brother who was on here, Bishop Brian Martin, Bishop Brian, and Pastor Clay was sitting down at our house having lunch right before I got ready to become the pastor of my church. And Bishop Brian looked at me and he said, Pastor Marvin, one thing I don't want you to do is make the mistakes I made. If I can give you anything, I can give you truth. He said, when I first started out, 80% of my church's income was going back out the door to musicians. We need to talk about that for real.
That's great.
Well, see, I think it's easy to find someone to play for free. It's hard to find someone who's good to play for free. You know, so I mean,
we the problem. Anytime we make comments like that, we the problem. Let me tell you why I say that. When I came to my church, I was a mediocre drummer. When the keyboard player that we had left the church, I told my pastor, I said, you ain't gonna never have to pay another keyboard player. What did my pastor do? She labored with me. They knew I was hitting wrong notes, foul notes, bad, all of that. But I got good over time, because the priority was not to sit there and be broke as a church trying to pay somebody based on a skill level. They had somebody with a good heart, and they walked with me in the process of becoming better. Come on, tell on yourself some more, Pastor.
No, not my opinion. It's just reality. It's easier to find someone who's not efficient to do it for free. One is for a platform. Freedom Church has a strong platform. You know, so
we didn't start.
But wonderful church. There are sea of people in attendance. It's a great. So people want to play there There's a platform. If you don't have a platform, normally they want to check. And
Pastor
people
Matt
really good at what
challenging
they
you
do.
on that.
Time out.
Pastor Matt challenging you on that. Come on, Pastor Matt. You have audio issues too, Pastor Clay.
We got to stay in the mindset piece, but let me just say
Hold
this.
on 1 second, Pastor Matt, because I want to let him know he having some audio issues.
Yeah, he having some issues.
Yeah. Come on, Pastor Matt.
Okay. I just want to, first of all, Pastor Wilkins hit so much, so well. But I just want to say, Brother Clay, Pastor Clay, you're looking at what's now. You're not looking at what happened in 2011 with where Freedom Church started. It literally I guess it was some kind of an auto shop they converted. I was a part of the church at that time, up in Jarrettsville, like out in the middle of nothing over there. Okay, no, it wasn't. It wasn't on the corner of Fulton and Poppleton or whatever, but it was out there. It was a rule. The other thing is, I'm going to challenge it again because it's the mentality. And actually there's a business, if you want to take the church side of it out and get clear on business, there's a business flaw that says you pay musicians, because if the musicians are that good, they should be drawing in people that can sustain the pay. And if that's not happening, it's about them. That's a business principle, but maybe that's
talk about it. We're gonna have that show too, because I need to talk about
the mindset. Jesus came to serve and not be served.
Yeah.
And if we are not taught as when in the church we're recognized as ministers or stepping into any form of ministry, and we're not taught the principle and what that is and understand, then we're not going to do like Pastor Marvin's talking about or Pastor Wilkins is saying, where it comes up out. Look, the churches I've been a part of, starting churches up out of my own pocket, worked bivocational jobs. I've never made more than $65,000 a year. Okay, right. I'm just be real. You want to be real? Let's be real. And I've got 3 thick boys that all needed crazy food, all this stuff. So, and all kind of attention. But it came because we served, and then we would see serving begetting serving. Let me say this for those who are stuck on me being white going to a county church. I know plenty of pastors in Baltimore, guys like Pastor Charlie and Trevor over at Epiphany. These guys went out, and not from one organization, but multiple families and friends. They came out of Camden, New Jersey. They raised support to come do church here, to help do a church that would reach people with the gospel. There's another Pastor Dan Hune, who has the Village, who came, and he's a Korean pastor.
Yeah, Pastor Dan is awesome.
And he's a Korean pastor, and yeah, he's around Remington, but he's in a primarily African American city, and the people that are connecting. Of course, there's Hopkins. He's reaching a certain group of people, but he raised the support to come do that, and that's really hard. We've seen other pastors come in and raise support to come do it, and because of the mindset not being right in the community and not properly getting a chance to nurture or foster that mindset, they haven't been able to economically make it work where, and they were reaching, they were reaching amazing people, and they're reaching people from the neighborhood as well as out in the county, but weren't able to become what I would say is self-sustaining as a church. But there's pastors that take part-time job to make that happen. So I just want to be, I'm gonna be cautious because the day and age in which we live. So I might get canceled on this, but I just want to be careful that we say it's a black thing, it's a white thing, it's a this or that. No, it's a mindset. It's a tradition that we were willing to worship at the altar of a tradition of putting certain people above certain things. And I tell you, the real test is when the offering comes in and it goes out the door to people in the community. Now you're talking about a gospel-centric church where more goes out than it does to pay. And I'm not saying staff shouldn't be paid. Staff should be paid. The other thing is it starts with humble beginnings. Our key guy over worship, and I'll leave it at this, our key guy over worship, Pastor Ryan, I love him. He's not the best keyboard player ever. And he's been given stewardship over this whole thing at Freedom Church I talked about with 200 plus. And he's still playing keyboard, still up there doing it, but figured it out as it came, did with what the first keyboard that he had to play in the church was not top notch at all, and it works sometimes. So I'm just saying it transcends that attitude, that mindset transcends our socioeconomic, racial role piece play. All right, I'll be cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I believe that. Pastor Wilkins, come on and jump in on this one.
Talk about that business
say-
model.
I was going to say also we also have to going back over the mind
You coming in real choppy, Pastor.
that is,
Man.
you know,
Pastor, you coming in real
is
choppy.
this just simply an opportunity for the musicians, or do these musicians? I'm coming in choppy.
Yeah.
Do I sound better?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
Yes.
much better.
Okay. So, or is this to vision? Do they see vision? Even if they're not necessarily members to your ministry, do they still see vision? Do they still respect the leader enough to come and submit or serve? Because that has a lot to do with it as well. I won't say that every musician that plays for us played, because there was some that believed in the vision and they believed in the leadership, and so they felt comfortable with submitting or surrendering or being available. So there's a difference between those who are kingdom minded and those who see an opportunity. Now I'll tell you guys, I do not play, I do not sing, so I am not coming from the standpoint of a musician, but I will say that pastoring, I have been able to navigate those who were just looking for an opportunity versus those who understood ministry. And you know, and I remember taking in a gentleman who was fresh out of high school, and I did the same thing. He played and he became better, and he practiced and he studied, and he was, you know, he was tutored, and he became better over a period of time and ended up coming back and serving on an excellent level, and did not require what some on the outside would have required. So you're talking about a difference of, you know, $400 to $500 per week. Now, I know we're talking about the differences between starting and where you are, but you know, $1,000 budget just for musicians in an urban community or in a startup church, that's a lot of money going out of the door, and it does limit you on how many you can feed, and you know how many bills you can pay, and how, you know, much you can actually do in the community, because you're just trying to ensure that you are sustaining on Wednesdays and Sundays. And let me tell you, this story for me was after 8 months of not having any musicians at all, and just deciding to use some microphones and using some other instrumental music, because in the beginning, the foundation needed to be on serving and the word. And there were some people that caught on. And so I do believe that if we create that culture, then it's possible. But unfortunately, sometimes we dive in with what we were already given based on tradition, or what we see, or how we serve, or how church looked to us, and how we experienced it. And then we have to navigate through all of that.
So let me say this real quick, because being a person that was a young musician and was not a great musician, you know, that got a lot better, and got to a point to where I could hold my own and that sort of thing. You know, the response, the thing that made me dedicated to my church, and we haven't touched on this or talked about this, and not require a money, was that I was loved. The love that I needed as a person who had lost my biological mother, whose life when I came to the church was in turmoil, the love that I needed was there. I wasn't a hireling because I didn't come to that church. My spiritual mother cared more about my soul than she did anything else, and wouldn't hesitate to sit me down without fear that I would walk away from her if I needed to make sure that we need musicians with good character.
Come on.
They can come in there smelling like they just smoked an ounce of loud. As long as they there, you're going to still put them on the instruments, regardless of what type of image that projects to other people in the church. It was standards, and the standards were high, even though I was loved. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And I was loved without fear of my own rejection. So we ain't talking about that. We can talk about the musicians being hirelings. We can talk about it, but how many of us are really having a sit down conversation and getting to know who that person is, what the struggle is, and how they may have been treated prior to coming to our churches? Because that's what it was for me. When I came out of prison, I met Pastor Clae and them because I jumped on a Joy Night circuit. Had no, somebody told me they was going to make an album. I thought I was going to get rich. By the time I landed in my church, I sang in so many big time places and all that sort of thing that I came with a degree of arrogance that my spiritual leader didn't care anything about. She just loved me. And the church grew to love me. And it became exactly what I needed. And money was never a factor. Come on, Pastor Clay. I know you got something.
Oh, yeah. Well, once again, yeah, I know. I got you, brother. Yeah. So I mean, I agree. I'm not saying that I believe that. My point is, I agree with everyone. However, I do live in the real world, right. and so I get it, and Black church likes music, man, and if you want really good music, because once again, you can find somebody to play for you, and they'll play for free, and they'll be faithful, they'll be loyal, but the music won't be good. But if you want an outstanding, and I think what happened is that the word excellence came into play. So churches wanted to be excellent, in presentation. And
I don't think excellence is a skill set. I think excellence, when we talking in Christ, is about a spirit. I think excellence is about integrity. Because to me, this is what the problem is. We can have the guy with the most skill, but have the horrible character, and then we want to preach on him and talk about him when he impregnate 6 girls in our church and give the 5 other ones STDs. Yeah, let's have a real conversation. When we dub excellence about a skill set, then we are the problem. But excellence to me ain't a skill set. It's integrity. It's a spirit. It's a right spirit.
But the gift comes without repentance. So you're gifted whether or not you repent or not. So
that ain't what I said.
No,
we talking standards. We ain't talking gifting, because I came gifted. Yeah. I can preach, I can play, I can sing, I know how to pray, I can do all of that. But what is it worth if I don't? The mentality and mindset that we talking about is one that's integral. What good is all of that stuff if I have no integrity?
So you're saying that if someone wants to be paid, they're not integral? Is that what you're
No, I said that I'm not paying anybody whose character is not in order, is what I'm saying. I'm not going to pay you because you have a skill set and bad character. Because what I keep hearing is excellence associated with how well you play. How well they play will come on. Now, if we wasn't on here, Clay, I could start naming names of guys that you wouldn't let within 10 feet of your church that we know. Exactly. Right. Because they've come in and they've destroyed ministries, but they will play like ain't nobody's business.
Yeah, but I believe
that. But can't we say that across the board? Can't we really
honestly
say that across
the board? Absolutely, we can. So preachers and otherwise.
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah,
absolutely. But we talking about them right now. And I'm responding to Pastor Clay saying, if you want excellence, if you want outstanding music, no, I want somebody with a good spirit, even if their skill set ain't excellent.
Well, that's your expectation. So I don't know how good your music department is. I have no idea, right? But people that want great music departments, they want people. I don't care how integral you are, because some of the most talented guys I know aren't really that integral.
We know. But then, so do we make? Because I can't answer for anybody else. Do we make that compromise? Because if we keep coming back and bringing the conversation back to mentality, the mentality is not about how well you play. I cannot get you to embrace a vision and a culture that I'm trying to establish as a leader that's integral if you have no integrity. Pastor Matt?
Yeah, first of all, Pastor Clay, I don't know what you're doing with those scissors. Put them down. Come back up, brother. I don't know what's going on. I know you're taking some shots. But hey, let me just share a little bit again about our experience, as different as it may be from what people want to say about their experience.
Yeah.
We struggled when our church was growing, starting. We struggled when we were struggling with getting leaders in place, quality in place.
Right.
And something came across. The Lord just opened a door for us. And it's a study. It's a 12-week study. It's actually called Freedom. And so our church used to be called Way of Life Community Church. And then we got this. Well, let me just say this study got a hold of us. All the senior leaders went through it. We made a quality decision because of the transformation it made in our lives that we would commit to what Pastor Marvin's talking about, the right mindset. And we said everybody that's going to be a part of leadership in the church from now on, no matter what size, what we do, they're first going to go through this discipleship time. And let me say, we've had some people that we like to pay to put on the platform, like they blow the house down, and they didn't make it through. And our commitment was to loving them and realizing that part of they're not making it through or completing or growing in their relationships horizontally and with the Lord wasn't going to make it through. We didn't care about their ability. We loved them. We found out their identity was tied in that, and we embraced them. And we've seen some people really come through. We've seen some people move on to the next church because they thought there was what Pastor Wilkins said, the opportunity for them. Yeah. And it breaks my heart, the prosperity mindset that's been indoctrinated into the people and what the results are that we're getting as a result of that. It just feels so backwards.
Yeah.
And it's not about judging anybody, but it's about coming to that throne of grace together in relationship, loving people through the process. And again, let me just, and as harsh as it sounds, if we'll make the hard stop and the hard decision to get the mindset right, to be like Christ, he came to serve, not be served. We're blessed to be a blessing, that whole thing. And in all of our ministries and everything we do, and it's so hard because we have the, what do they call it? The pressure or the urgency of today. I mean, service is coming up Wednesday, service coming up Sunday. We got to do something now. And I get that's a pressure. That's a very real pressure on pastors. But while doing these things simultaneously, make that quality decision, it shifts the whole thing, moving away from these traditions that don't reflect the values that we have. And I encourage, I don't know if there's preachers watching this or not. It is really the best thing our church had done. Our church wasn't growing like it grows now until we made that decision. And it took time. You can come now and you can see our campus, you can see all the stuff. But the growth, it didn't happen. We were plateaued hard. And quite honestly, we were all almost apathetic. Because as far as senior leaders, because it was like, we've done it, we tried it all, but then the Holy Spirit was good enough to get it to us, and we went through freedom. So our church went from being called Way of Life Community Church to starting to getting it right, at least committing ourselves to the Lord to get it right with this freedom curriculum. Now we call it Freedom Church. Like just like Paul had this experience, right, where he went through, and it changed our character to become something that draws something that's a little more centered around what we see as biblical value.
Yeah.
So
we had our 1 hour time limit.
We there?
Pastor Matt, are you okay with that being your final thought?
Yes.
Pastor Wilkins, come on and give us a final thought. We're going to come back and revisit some of this cultural conversation. This won't be the last time.
Awesome. I did want to say to you and to the platform that are on today, and that is I learned this in business, and you guys are fully aware that I manage, all parts of Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Rosedale. I mean, I will say that I learned earlier on in business dealing with people is that you can teach a skill, but you cannot teach character.
Come on now.
And so I will say that,
right.
I'm into developing a skill, because I can teach you a skill. I cannot change your disposition. That disposition is something that you have to yield to God in order for it to be changed. And so I will say again, I agree with the majority of the panelists to a certain degree. But I will say my final thought to this is that I don't think that we should be dispensing out to our musicians more than we are serving the community for the sake of great music. Because most people are emotionally stimulated, especially in our community. They are emotionally tantalized with music, but they walk out without having a real experience, real change. And we really have to refocus on that, because again, you can give someone great music, but 6 months they're still battling with the same thing. Lack of understanding, not being properly discipled, because all we did was give them emotionalism and we sent them out the door.
Right.
Pastor Clay, give us your final thoughts.
Yep. Keep Christ the primary thing.
That's all I'm gonna get tonight. Listen, y'all, I love having you guys on. That's always more than enough. I love everybody here. I just want y'all to know I thank you so much, Pastor Wilkins, for always being available to the Chop Shop and coming and sharing your great wisdom. Pastor Matt, thank you, man. You really brought some good information and good wisdom tonight around this topic. And Pastor Clay, as always, man, you always bring the wisdom and you bring the heat. At the same time, I do want to let everybody know that next week we are going back, because y'all know we take this little dive off from a lot of the political topics, and we'll take a pause for the cause, and the show will be Christ-centered like it was tonight. But we're going back into our Baltimore conversations with one of the greatest minds in criminal justice anywhere, but specifically in Baltimore. He's the original selection as our consent decree monitor, and then some politics happened and he wound up not being that. But he does have the great insights around law enforcement, police reform, our consent decree here, and every time I talk to him, school is in session. We're going to be sitting down with the great Dr. Tyrone Powers next week. You do not want to miss this conversation. I thanked all my guests. I got to bring my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts, back on to tell you thank you, man. Always Techniques 1200s, because anything else is undignified. Man, look, I'm going to go back and watch Jada fry the whole y'all got, listen, I'm the pastor that when you see me ride down the street and I got Eric B and rocking on him on Judge Your Mama, I like hip hop. Y'all know you'll see me beat down the street with Eric B and rock him on in a minute, and I ain't gonna apologize for it. So I'm gonna go back and watch that verses one more time, Shaka, because my man Jada was just in his zone, and it was fun to watch. Last but not least, I always say, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Of course it does. And tonight, you guys were here to hear us. What would it matter if we came on and talked about these great things? If I brought my great friend, the thinker himself, Clay Burston, on, and we didn't get anybody to listen to his empowered thoughts. But you guys show up. Mama Brenda, Dr. Rodell Hall was with us tonight, someone who could have really been on this panel because he's been in music ministry and done so much. Miss Carla Saxton, Nadine Page. There's so many I could just roll through the comments. Miss Manya Smith, and Shaka be throwing shots. Hey, Clay. Look, our best commenter is Shaka, because Shaka be throwing shots like he not the producer and engineer the show.
I told you I'm a fan, man. I'm a fan first, man.
And look, the next conversation I have about church, I gotta get my man Bishop Brian Martin on here.
Nah. He threw a haymaker. He threw a room shaker earlier. That's
just what he do, man. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us, man. As always, I say, I need y'all to continue to love Baltimore. This is the city that not only raised and reared me, but gave me my second chance. Could always trust God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He will direct your path. Be the change that you want to see. Don't wait on nobody, whether you're talking in the church, in your neighborhood, or in the workplace, the marketplace. Be the change you want to see. And always remember, we can be more.
I can be more. There's nothing that I can't achieve if I just believe. You can be more. You can make every dream a reality. We can be more. Be more, be more.
Yeah.
I can be more.
I wake up every day and try to be more. I pray I be more. It's easy to achieve anything you believe. Like hold your head high. Girl, you got a reason to breathe. I see a rare mind. Boy, you got a reason to dream. Let's take flight. Give the children a reason to see redemption. We grow up in the jacks where it's evil and wicked. Where the people with success don't want to send you a visit. But we still finna make this life worth living. Now throw your hands to the sky if you feel it. Hey, throw your hands to the sky if you the realest. You got a vision. Let's put them pistols away and make sure the OGs keep the community safe. In the world where the ladies crying, the babies dying, I think we can create that space to make a way for the ladies to ride and make baby giants. Be more, believe, let's play. I'm so in love with life.